As Senior Vice President of Communications, Stephanie leads the NAR members' consumer and media communication efforts with such things as Realtor Magazine, Realtor.org content, NAR leadership presentations, NAR webinars, social media, and more. Please welcome to the stage Stephanie Singer. Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you very much, David, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. You know, it's been said, maybe. Okay, I'll go on. It's been said that there have never been more ways to reach consumers, and it's never been harder to reach them. There you go. For the next 45 minutes, I'm going to be talking about today's media environment and how that's impacted all of us, but in particular, the incoming generations of home buyers, sellers, and investors. Then I'm going to talk about how NAR is addressing this issue and redefining the R and the Realtor brand value proposition in this changing environment. And finally, I'm going to share some resources that you can use in your own business practices to help you make your own meaningful connections with consumers. So 25 years ago, when I started in PR, it was a big deal if I could get a story for my client in the New York Times. It's like, yay, a win! Because what that meant was the daily regional papers would usually follow suit, and the weekly papers would also cover the story. So you could be reasonably sure that your target audience would see your message. How many of you remember a time when there were only 3 television networks in PBS? Yes. My nieces and nephews are horrified when I tell them of a time we'd be watching TV late at night as kids, and then the Star Spangled Banner would come on just like we just saw, you know, with the anthem, and the flag would wave, and then there would be static, and they're, oh my God, what would you do? It's just terrifying to them. But during that time, advertisers would adopt a technique called road blocking. And what they would do would be buy 30-second spots at the same time slot across all 3 networks. So if you're somebody watching TV at home and an ad comes on and you don't want to watch it, you change the channel and you're watching the same ad, right? Can you imagine how difficult road blocking would be in today's media environment? I mean, the amount of resources would just blow your mind. It's really impossible to do that in today's world. Not only are there a ton of traditional media outlets, but how many of you have a Facebook page? Yeah, and a Twitter feed. Right? So all of you, I'm looking at probably 400 media outlets out here. You're all content providers, and you all consume a lot of that content across all of these channels. So what's that done to trends in consumption of media? Not surprising. Consumption of traditional outlets like TV, radio, and print have been trending downward as people go more mobile. Today's consumers, and we're all a subset of that, you want information where you are, when you want it. The days of on-demand or linear TV are really gone. That's where a show comes on at 8 p.m., you sit down and you watch it, and then it's over. And if you miss it, it's gone. Well, that's not the case anymore. On-demand TV, content never goes away. I mean, I have a slew of The Americans that I have to watch. I have to catch up on that. And then Breaking Bad, I haven't finished that. I mean, for all of us, it just seems like there's this information overload. I found a video whoa. That's not the video. I found a video online. This is from Mashable. It's actually one of these new media outlets. It calls itself a source of news, information, and resources for the connected generation. So I'm going to show you this video. It's going to talk about the impact of all of this overload of information. We'll talk about it on the other side.
When I woke up this morning, the very first thing I did was check my email and Facebook. Then I sat down with a bowl of cereal and checked my YouTube feed. I'm subscribed to 147 channels and there were 61 new videos waiting for me. I spent 15 minutes choosing which video to watch and 2 minutes actually watching it. Then I went to the video subreddit and watched a viral video of a crazy Japanese game show. I walked to work listening to a Crack.com podcast. At the office, I edited a video on one screen while watching Netflix on another. Back at home, I spent an hour searching for another Netflix show, then browsed HBO Go, Hulu, Blip TV, Vimeo, College Humor, Comedy Central. You know what? I'm just gonna go home and play games on Steam. The average American spends 13.6 hours every day consuming media from dozens of different sources. Our culture has reached media oversaturation, and it's affecting the way we consume and appreciate content. I mean, no one can deny, it's awesome. We live in a world where every song, movie, TV show, book, and broadcast is instantly available at the tap of a finger. But what if all this infinite choice is a bad thing? Several scientific studies show that more options actually make us less happy. Researchers from Hope College and Yale University found that people that compare and deliberate on their choices more actually experience higher levels of anxiety and even depression. The term opportunity cost refers to the time invested in one selection versus the opportunities lost in another. Simply put, spending an hour watching PewDiePie play Minecraft means one less hour watching Antiques Roadshow, Legend of Korra, a documentary about sushi. Media has become infinite, but time remains limited. And while we regret the options that we miss out on, we also regret the options that we settle with. In one experiment, a group of people were given season passes to a local theater company. Half were given the passes at the full price and the other half at a discount. The researchers found that full price payers attended more shows than discount payers, and argued that people experience more regret if they don't use what they pay for. Think about how this experiment applies to subscription services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and HBO Go. We feel obligated to consume as much media as possible to make the most out of what we've paid for. A phenomenon called adaptation is another side effect of infinite choice. In short, the more media we're exposed to, the more we become used to it and become progressively less satisfied with what we consume. We've seen so many stories, tropes, and ideas rehashed that nothing seems original anymore. Pop culture starts to feel stale as we realize how little content is actually original. Because of adaptation, enthusiasm over new content doesn't last very long, and we become obsessed with novelty. We crave fresh new content faster than creators can put it out, and when a new movie or show is successful, there's an overwhelming and immediate demand for more. This leads to yet another problem called the blurring effect, which is a term coined by web critic Mike Stoklasa. We are inundated by so much content today that it's actually easier to remember older content from a time when there wasn't so much choice. Try to remember the last 5 movies you watched, then try to remember 5 movies you loved as a kid. Which is easier? This blurring effect concept is dramatically affecting the way that Hollywood makes movies. In order to compete with the endless glut of alternative entertainment, big studios strive to appeal to the largest, most profitable demographics. This severely limits the types of films being made. So what are we left with? A whole bunch of sequels, remakes, reboots, and adaptations of books and comics we read growing up. Properties that a mass audience will recognize and guarantee a profit. Even blockbusters with original scripts seem to target a singular demographic, white males between the age of 18 and 35. Which is a bit counterintuitive considering that, according to the MPAA, there are actually slightly more women filmgoers than men. But Hollywood's challenging relationship with the female demographic is a topic for another time. The great paradox is that infinite choice is also a positive force in our society. There are more artists, filmmakers, and creators now than at any other time in history, and all those artists have an audience and platform to share their work and ideas. But with these incredible gains, the question becomes, what have we lost?
I'm just exhausted looking at that video, right? So into this enter the context of the hyper-connected consumer today. And this really crosses demographics. I mean, there are a number of people in this room, I'm sure, that would consider themselves hyper-connected consumers. But it does typically tend toward millennials and the younger generation following them because these people are digital natives. They've actually grown up in this environment. So for some of us, this is an adaptation and something we haven't always experienced. But for the younger generation, this has like really influenced their brain synapses and the way that they consume and perceive media. Some of the characteristics of the hyper-connected consumer, about a third of them watch more online video than TV. And this goes back to the trends away from traditional media. Another characteristic of this group is that 20% use internet only on their mobile devices. We're seeing a huge shift in how people consume information. And for us as communicators, we want to reflect that in retailing our content for bite size, more appropriate for smaller screens. It's a lot of things to think about. Also, fastest growing apps are Vine, Flickr, and Instagram. And these are apps that really emphasize imagery. So we're trying to be cognizant of that in the information we put out in terms of infographics, less text, more visual imagery that tells a story. A lot of you have probably experienced this. 3 out of 4 want complaints answered very quickly, like within an hour. So responsiveness is the name of the game, and it's all really about this idea of I want everything on demand when I want it. And then 3 out of 4 get frustrated when brand content doesn't match their interests. Just because we think something is relevant to consumers doesn't mean they naturally see the connection. So one of the most important things we do in communications is to see how we can make our story relevant to consumers. Why should they care? Into that, all of this information has an effect of making people feel that they are self-sufficient and DIY experts. But that's not necessarily the case. I recently heard about a man who did his own root canal based on a video that he had seen on YouTube, which I just don't think is a very good idea. And maybe a milder form of that is going on WebMD and self-diagnosing this, I have this bump on my neck, I don't know what's going on. There have also been studies that show that online dating can actually backfire in that people are always thinking maybe there's just a better mate down the road and just around the corner. And as the video mentioned, the paradox of choice, it seems that the more choices we're exposed to, the less satisfied we are. A lot of you probably had this experience with maybe a buyer who saw 100 properties and just couldn't decide. It's that paradox of choice. So enter into this today's realtor. And realtors, of course, are a subset of today's consumers. This data is from the National Association of Realtors member profile. And it shows that a lot of our realtor members are just like these hyper-connected consumers. You're using social media. You're connecting with consumers and your clients in digital ways, very different ways. You're looking for ways to reach out. But an interesting finding of the profile is that more than 9 out of 10 of our members entered real estate as a second career. And that's not surprising because I know real estate is a difficult business to enter. You have to have a certain amount of access to resources. Some experience helps with the business world connections. And all of this speaks to why that is. But that also means that the average age, the median age of our realtor members typically are in their mid-50s. So there is a bit of a generation gap in this upcoming generation of home buyers, sellers, and investors. So we just want to be cognizant of that. How can we make the realtor brand relevant to today's consumers? And the fact is that consumers interface with the realtor brand in a number of different ways, not only through the national association, the state association, local associations, but through Realtor.com, which is often the first point of contact consumers have with the realtor brand just by the virtue of its name. And of course, realtor members like you. So all of these interactions influence and have an impact on the consumer perception of the realtor brand. So we asked realtors, the key is making it relevant to consumers. What's in it for them? What's the value that realtors bring? So we asked 1,000 realtors in an online survey, tell us about the things that you do for your customers, clients, and the community. What value do you add? And as you might expect, got a lot of different answers from providing local market insights to references to contractors and people that can do jobs, arts and entertainment in the community, rehoming pets when necessary. Also information on land zoning and development plans, and contacts to public policy officials, how to get things done in the community. Then we asked millennials what a realtor is to them. And I think you'll be interested in hearing some of their responses.
When I hear realtor, I think of somebody that my parents used to buy a home. Think of kind of the old school way of doing things. You know, you seek out their advice, you get their insights and their knowledge and their wisdom on how to go about the home buying process.
When I thought of a realtor before we started looking, I guess I thought they were just like super businessy, like wanted to sell the house, wanted to make the sale, things like that.
People that just want to sell a home, regardless of the house, they just want to make a commission.
Have I ever talked to a realtor? No.
No, I've never talked to a realtor.
I've never talked to a realtor before because I didn't really feel like I needed one. I do think I could buy a home without a realtor.
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities, like online. You can go through Zillow right now and really do your own research.
I think I can buy a home without a realtor, but I think it would make everything very complicated and very difficult.
Timing, schedules, scheduling everything.
Things that frustrate me about the home buying process are just not knowing the unknown. I feel like it's hard to find credible information online about the forms, the processes, the financials.
I'm not necessarily sure how to find the right realtor for us.
Really at this point, not knowing where to start. You know, the type of money that I need to get started, what to expect, and how to prepare.
We say that real estate is grounded in relationships, so this video makes me think of this Far Side cartoon. It seems sometimes the millennials must be on a different parallel universe. You know, with this access to information, remember talking about this idea of self-sufficiency. It really shouldn't come as a surprise to us that some people ask, why should I use a realtor? The thing is, when I bought my first house in 1996, I didn't go online. I wasn't searching all kinds of properties. I didn't go research on my financing. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had no information resource other than the realtor that I was connected to through a friend of my parents, and she helped me through every phase of the process. She educated me about financing. She helped me identify my needs, find the right house for me. And she was involved and very engaged throughout the process. But today, that search phase has really changed. We know that most consumers, before they contact a realtor, go online first. They look at homes, they research stuff. Again, this idea of they gain knowledge, but they don't necessarily know what they don't know. Another effect of this online environment is that, especially the up-and-coming generation, it's created a bit of a paradigm of a disconnect. It's like this insular feeling. I don't have to reach out. Reaching out and touching someone is a threat to a lot of people. So the online environment provides a kind of comfort and a cocoon for them. This is played out in some interesting ways. We did a survey of 1,000 non-millennials and millennials and asked them, throughout the three phases of, say, the home buying process, the search, select, and secure, at different points, how excited are you? How anxious are you? And interestingly, we found that the point of contacting a realtor was a level of high anxiety for a lot of people. It's that interpersonal connection that they're just concerned about. But the good news is, consumers, we asked about different emotions. And in the point of select, where a realtor comes in, the positive emotions of excitement and relief start to go up. And negative emotions of anxiety and frustration overall go down. So, realtors are really the solution. The thing is, if you watch a lot of ads on TV these days, particularly in the search phase, it's really painted an unrealistic picture of the home buying experience. It's all dreamy and kind of fuzzy romantic imagery, and you magically get into a house and your kid climbs up into the treehouse and you're the owner of a home. That's not surprising because search is fun. It's the fun part. Search is easy and it's aspirational. It's not surprising that that's the picture that is being painted. But as realtors, that Whether you're in a residential setting or in a commercial setting, the path to success in a real estate transaction is fraught with numerous challenges, obstacles, and also little successes and wins along the way. And that's one of the key things we want to get across to consumers, is that it's about winning. A realtor helps you win. And how does a realtor help you win? Talking about relevance to the consumer. We know that you provide all kinds of information, insight, and experience. The local intelligence, the insights into the local market. You can also, a realtor can understand what's beyond what you can find in an online search. They can help you see things that you don't. They have a bulldog mentality. A realtor is your consumer advocate, whether you're conducting a real estate transaction or whether they're fighting for your rights to own and invest in real estate property in the public policy arena. And finally, that you're the connectors in the community. You are the original, American dream, like made in America kind of profession. So how do we make that realtor-consumer connection with these messages? We have to come at consumers from all sides. It's not just about the National Association. It's, of course, the involvement of your state and local associations, and you as individual realtors. We all have an effect on the consumer perception of the realtor brand. Beyond that, at the National Association level, we work on an integrated communications approach. That means we're trying to hit consumers, like I said, in the plethora, all the information sources they get. We want to cut through the clutter. And we do that through a variety of tactics: owned, shared, earned, and paid. And I'm going to talk about each of them in turn. First, about owned media. Owned media is a form of brand journalism. It's content that we create, we publish, we can completely control the message, and we reach directly to consumers with these content providers. I hope that a lot of you are familiar with HouseLogic. If you're not, I encourage you to go on the website, houselogic.com. But it's more than that. It's a very robust digital presence. We have created materials across platforms: Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube. And these are specifically focused at consumers in the residential market. We've also designed a lot of the materials that realtors can share in your own businesses. I'm going to give you an example of one of those right now. This is a video series that HouseLogic creates. It resides on HouseLogic. HouseLogic, as you could see by that video, is about demonstrating the realtor value beyond the buying and selling transaction and throughout the whole homeownership life cycle. Now, audio is also a great way to tell a story, to reinforce that realtor value by storytelling. And our radio show, Real Estate Today, does that in 175 affiliates across the country. But also, in the interests of the new media environment, we're looking at new ways to leverage this asset. Of course, we have podcasts and we have the show online, but we're looking for ways to parse the content out in more snackable, shareable forms. We're also considering a Real Estate Today radio minute that would be more distributable across different formats in radio. So next, shared media. Shared media is content that we create that we hope to leverage in other channels like the state and local associations and our realtor members. I mentioned already the HouseLogic social presence, but NAR's research team creates a lot of infographics. If you remember, I talked about the Flickr and Instagram being some of the fastest growing apps. It speaks to that need for imagery and being able to tell a story quickly. And these are all available on Realtor.org for you all to use as well. Finally, in the center there, we created a hashtag last year, Power of R. This allows us, for those of you that are active on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, sharing stories that you might have with your clients or business successes, or even just some of the stuff that you're doing here at the meetings. If you incorporate the hashtag, that allows us to crowdsource that information, and we can track what realtors are doing to be able to maybe pull that up to the top. Here's something of value that a realtor's providing to a consumer. How can we create content out of that? We also provide a lot of information for the local and state associations to use, again, to that idea of shared media. We provide story ideas where associations can pitch realtors as experts across the real estate spectrum, both in commercial and residential. We've also last year created a turnkey toolkit to help associations position realtors as experts beyond the real estate transaction, hosting events with public policy leaders, leaders in the community that talk to real estate issues beyond the transaction and also help position the realtors, in that realtor brand value proposition. And related to the public policy arena, we have a website, homeownershipmatters.realtor. This speaks to a subset of our target audience, that politically engaged consumer, people that have expressed an interest in our issues, in issues that affect real estate, and really educates them on the issues that matter to both realtors and consumers, with the end objective of helping leverage their voices as well in the public policy arena for success. Next, earned media. Earned media is essentially when a journalist or producer decides to cover content that's ours in a traditional media outlet. And our earned media efforts help add credibility to our other communications efforts, because, let's be honest, if you read something in the New York Times, you're likely to perceive it as more credible than, on Bob's Law Blog. So anybody watched Arrested Development got that reference. So one of the things that's been interesting over the past, say, 5 to 7 years is Twitter for reporters. Reporters have flocked to Twitter like crazy. It's a very helpful tool for us. They use it for story sources, to get resources, to find out what's going on. So we have a very heavy Twitter presence in our media outreach. We also produce a blog and, of course, a YouTube channel to get to that need for content, to video. People like consuming imagery and video. Of course, all of this is with the objective of getting our realtor spokespeople quoted and presented in the media. That, again, further enhances the realtor brand. So here are some just examples of Chris Polycron and, of course, our chief economist, Lawrence Yoon. But that doesn't just happen on the national level. Your state association and local associations are also working to do that. Again, we work at all levels across the Realtor Association. So finally, paid media. And paid media is essentially content that wouldn't appear unless somebody paid for it. And in today's media environment, it's sad, but actually that is more and more the case. It's often a pay-for-play world. So recently, NAR, after an extensive nationwide search, has hired a new creative agency of record, Arnold Worldwide. And the Consumer Communications Committee and the leadership team selected Arnold based on their experience reinvigorating established brands, as well as their demonstrated expertise in reaching those hyper-connected consumers. You may recognize some of their clients. They're responsible for the Flow ads, the Flow progressive ads. They're also responsible for those guys in the bog at the Ocean Spray, the cranberries. And you may recognize some of their other clients. Now, we have just brought them on board, so we're currently in the concepting phase. But the creative will get to this idea of the fear of reaching out to a realtor and repositioning realtors as essential to success in the real estate transaction. Realtors help you win. And that's not only in the creative, but also in how we're reaching consumers. You're going to see a lot more digital, social engagement, new ways to integrate realtors into existing media. And as you can see from the timeline, we're currently in concepting, move to production, and we will be premiering the new campaign at NAR's annual meeting, shameless self-promotion, in November. I do have to say that I think your theme, like, make it happen, maybe a little more exciting than be here, but don't tell anybody I said that. So you're making it happen, we're just kind of here, but we're gonna be here and it's gonna be exciting. So, and we're all gonna make it happen. But if you can't come to the conference, we will be sharing a lot of this on our member communication channels, and of course you'll see them out there. As I start to wrap up today, I wanted to finish by sharing some of the resources that you can use that we create at the national level. Because at the end of the day, everything we do up here at the association level, in terms of supporting the Realtor brand and telling consumers how valuable you are, will really fall flat if at the end of the day a consumer doesn't have an experience that fulfills that brand promise when they interact with individual realtors. So we want to make sure that you have the resources and tools you need to demonstrate all of these things, your local intelligence, your seeing what others can't, the bulldog mentality, and the network, the connector. Realtor Magazine, Realtor.org, and our newsletters are probably some of the most visible member communications tools we have. To the interest and that we acknowledge, realtors, like everyone else, is moving more toward mobile. We are in the process of really redesigning Realtor.org to be much more mobile friendly and to be reflective of how people consume information on mobile. For instance, you're not going to read maybe a whole 3-page article on Realtor Magazine on your mobile device. It's teeny. So how do we take out that content and make it relevant for the mobile environment? Those are the kinds of things you're going to be seeing in the future. We also acknowledge that people, have really embraced social, and we use that as a very valuable media communication. I'm sorry, we communicate to so many audiences, I can't keep them straight. Member communications tool. We have, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and actually social media has been a way that we can focus on your specific interests. There's a YPN network Twitter feed. There's obviously commercial, broker engagement. So anything that you're interested in, we focus on in social media. So it's an opportunity to get information from NAR, but it's also an opportunity to interact and engage with your fellow realtors. So here are 5 things you can do right now as you leave this meeting to take advantage of some of the resources we have available. First, subscribe to our e-newsletters if you don't already. We have, as I said, the e-newsletters target specific audiences across the membership. We have a commercial e-newsletter. We have one for brokers, business tips and trends, new members. So if you want to subscribe to those, just go to Realtor.org, click on the News, Blogs, and Video tab, and go down to subscribe to e-newsletters. And you can subscribe to as many or as few as you want, but those will come automatically to you, so you don't even have to go look for them. I strongly urge you to visit Facebook, HouseLogic's Facebook presence. You can access all of the other platforms on HouseLogic through Facebook, and I think you'll find some of that information, especially if you practice residential real estate, very interesting and maybe useful in your own consumer outreach. You can also put the Real Estate Today radio widget on your own website. If you go to retradio.com, you can also search Real Estate Today in Google and you'll come up. Go to the For Realtors section and it will take you through the process of how to do that. You can also subscribe to the podcast so it gets delivered directly to you and learn more about each of the segments online. Consider when you're sharing information across social media, consider adding the hashtag #PowerOfR to it. That will help us at the national level, as I said, curate that content and understand what's really going on in those individual interactions and be able to maybe elevate those discussions. And finally, talk to your clients, because at the end of the day, the one-on-one interaction that you have with consumers is is really the most important one that we have. You know, I said it before, and I'll say it again, real estate is really about relationships. In today's over-connected world, it's our job to make meaningful connections not only between realtors and consumers, but also between the Realtor Association and you, the realtor members that we serve. So I hope I've done that in a small way today. And thank you all for your time, and have a great conference. Make it happen.